Hey everyone, Lizzie here. We are on the second part of my 6-part series on the question, is journalism dying or just transforming? Today we'll focus on the topic of journalists with disabilities and how the convergence of technology and journalism is pretty much changing the landscape for how journalists with disabilities are performing and acting in the workplace. This is especially an important topic for podcasts where casual free-flowing conversation is kind of the name of the game. This topic really drummed up some controversy recently when Donald Trump made fun of a reporter who had physical disabilities, and it was really quite awful the way Trump responded to this reporter. So take a look at the video now, and what are your thoughts on it?
Donald Trump facing new criticism for something he did on the campaign trail last night in South Carolina while defending his debunked claim that he saw thousands of Muslims celebrate the collapse of the Twin Towers here in New York. He appeared to mock a reporter with a disability. Take a look.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
That reporter he is talking about is Serge Kovaleski, who now works for the New York Times. As you can see right there, he suffers from a chronic condition that impairs movement of his arms. A Times spokesman says they find it outrageous that Trump would ridicule the man's appearance.
The Sun-Times network reports that Donald Trump is facing serious backlash after he mocked the disabled reporter during a campaign stop, and even prompting a Change.org position, which states, quote, "While I think many people would agree that Mr. Trump has a lot more to apologize than for just this, I figured it'd be a good start to formally request that he writes a letter apologizing for these actions specifically." Spokespeople from the New York Times think it's outrageous that Donald Trump is ridiculing the appearance of one of the reporters. But Donald Trump is arguing that he was not aware of any condition and was not mocking his physical appearance in any way.
Despite his gestures, Trump denies mocking Kovaleski, saying in a statement in part, "If Mr. Kovaleski is handicapped, I would not know, because I do not know what he looks like. If I did, I would definitely not say anything about his appearance." However, during Tuesday's rally, Trump was seen waving his arm around and held his hand in front of his chest in a claw-like position.
So obviously Donald Trump doesn't have a high respect for reporters who are disabled. But there are a lot of reporters out there who have mental, physical, emotional disabilities who are able to perform just as good, if not better.
This is your radio program?
Yes, it is. It's called How's Your News, and we're the only traveling team with disabilities at this convention. I'm really glad I get to meet you. I'm a big fan of your daughter.
Is that right?
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. If you want to be who you are, be who you are.
In addition to this, journalists have also founded the National Center on Disability Journalism, which provides resources and support to journalists covering disability issues. It's headquartered at Arizona State University. However, when I was trying to find research on how people with disabilities could be better reporters, I kind of found things like this. So I brought in a graduate student to help. I'm here with a graduate student from Mankato State University, and she's going to talk with us today about technology and how it might be of some difficulty to some people who have speech impediments or have some stutter or some sort of disability. And so yeah, so we're really glad she's here today. And if you could just take a quick minute to introduce yourself. Be great.
Sure. My name is Melissa Anderson, and I am a graduate student at Minnesota State University, Mankato. I am working towards getting my master's in speech-language pathology, and I will be graduating in May, so I'm almost done. And I'm really happy to be with you.
So the reason I brought you here today is to really kind of explore the changing scene of technology and how important it is to have your own voice, both technical, in audio, and both through video, and what that could possibly mean for people who have disabilities. So I don't know if you have any thoughts concerning this, but do you think people who have like a speech impediment or a stutter are at any disadvantage in the marketplace and technology for like technology in like newscasts and like audio podcasts, things like that?
I mean, I don't think there's a disadvantage. It's definitely a difficulty for individuals who have a stutter or
sure.
who are not able to say or have difficulty saying certain sounds. They definitely have a little bit more difficulty than, say, someone who's able to do all those things like you and me. So if, say, for example, someone was an individual who experienced stuttering and they wanted to be a news broadcaster, it may be difficult for them if they get nervous or are put in situations that could make them anxious, because that may provoke the stutter more.
Right.
So they would definitely have to practice a lot more with reading in front of people, because they have to read the teleprompter, and just being comfortable with who they are and telling people up front that they do stutter is one strategy that we do teach, so that people know ahead of time and that they aren't surprised, and then everyone can just kind of move forward when it does happen.
Great. So with the changing role of technology in the workplace, do you see, and like more awareness, because I think there's a huge awareness now of like people with disabilities and being more cognizant of that and more respectful of that. There's a huge movement of that. Do you think people will be more accepting of having like stutterers in workplace, or do you think that the workplace itself is just too demanding? Because I know you've never probably been in a newsroom, but I know I have, and it's kind of been very stressful when your editor puts you under a lot of pressure to finish an assignment in, I don't know, an hour, and it was just assigned to you. So I don't know if that, disables anybody's ability to do their job effectively, or what you think about that.
I mean, it may put a lot of people under stress, which I'm sure you felt before. And you're right, I've never been in a newsroom, but I think that the workplace can be understanding. It all depends on who you work for. Right. And these people who have disabilities, they understand that they need to work with people who are understanding of their condition and people who will work with them in order to create a positive work environment. So maybe an individual who does have like a language disorder or needs more time to understand the information given to them, they might need another hour in order to meet the deadline or something. So it's just more of those adaptations for those people.
Do you think that's possible? Given in such a demanding work environment where you have to get things deadline on time, do you think that's possible?
It really depends on the individual and how hard they want to work for it. So, anyone with a disability or who has a challenge that they're facing every day, it really depends on how much they want it and how hard they're wanting to work for it. It's like you and I.
In your studies, have you seen an upsurge in people receiving speech therapy lessons or practices that you know of?
There's, from when I've worked in different clinics, there has definitely been more people, younger individuals coming forward to get help. And I think that's because society today is so much more accepting. And I think that's really great to see, and it provides great opportunities for students like me to really understand all of the different clientele that we will be working with throughout our career as speech-language pathologists.
One other question. In one of my classes, New Media and Culture, we talk about how social media is a super huge impact on the changing face of journalism and how we communicate and interact with one another. Does that change for people who have a speech impediment or a stutter or a disability of any kind? Okay.
No, they're just like you and me, especially for social media. It may be a little bit more nerve-wracking for them to do a podcast or...
And can you explain that maybe further?
Yeah, so... say, for example, someone who, an individual with a stutter, they may get very nervous or tense before doing a podcast just because they know that they're going to stutter and they don't want to, and they want to sound, professional while they do this podcast. And what we do is it's important to remind them to, calm down, make sure that they practice it enough times, practice it in front of people so that they're used to it, and maybe addressing it before they even do their main portion of the podcast. Say that, I am an individual who stutters, and that's just who I am, and so if I stutter, then I am sorry, but that is who I am.
Huge round of applause for Melissa being here. It's really great to learn about how maybe technology can influence people's decisions, especially people who have disabilities, their decision to come into the news force. But obviously, they should not be discouraged because they are just treated like everybody else, obviously. So, yeah. So join me next time when I talk about clickbait, which is a new social media phenomenon about how journalism organizations beg you to click on their titles, making them really enticing. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen stuff like this. So I'm going to talk about that next and in my next video. And yes, until then, thank you.